Wait, look, still pushing the limits and breaking the chains. Passionate, heart and chaos in my veins. You can go bet $1 billion on my name. Bloody the work I put into the game. Divide the vibes, providing the knowledge. Got the motion like a college. You can get lost in the wave that's violent. WWF3 with compassionate armor warrior. The light is big time way I'm turning wrongs to right. Taking down my demons, I'm a smiter. 4v1, I'm a boss fighter. Immersive when I hit him, missing one tap. Break him, I'ma take him to his shatter point. I was mobile like a destination with world shots cooking at my station. I never turn my back on my creation. I can never turn my back on my community. I feel this feeling when I'm live. It's reminiscent of a high. I tell the haters say goodbye. Blast them away with one look in the eye. A football where they fly. More than $1 million on my mind. I'm pushing the limits and breaking the chains. Passionate, heart and chaos in my veins. You can go bet $1 billion on my name. Bloody the work I put into the game. Dividing the vibes, providing the knowledge. Got the motion like a college. You can get lost in the wave, it's violent. WWF3 with BF. I never turn my back on my creation. I can never turn my back on my community. I feel this feeling when I'm live. It's reminiscent of a high. I tell the haters say goodbye. Blast them away with one look in the eye. A football where they fly. More than $1 million on my mind. I'm passionate, armor warrior. The light is big time way I'm turning wrongs to right. And taking down my demons, I'm a smiter. 4v1, I'm a boss fighter. Immersive when I hit him, missing one tap. Break him, I'ma take him to his shatter point. I was mobile like a destination with world shots cooking at my station. Pushing the limits and breaking the chains. Passionate, heart and chaos in my veins. You can go bet $1 billion on my name. Bloody the work I put into the game. Dividing the vibes, providing the knowledge. Got the motion like a college. You can get lost in the wave, it's violent. WWF3 with BF.
And my ratings and everything.
Yeah. Well, it was a fun video. I mean, or when I watched it, I was trying to figure out. I recognized a lot of the actors that are in that show, the TV show, but yeah, I don't think I've seen it before. So you gave it a high rating though. What, 8.4? I think it said.
Yeah, it's really good.
What? It was on Hulu. Some of those actors that I had seen on there. What was the name of the show though?
Paradise.
Paradise. A lot of those actors I had seen on like those mainstream networks like NBC or CBS. I'm guessing it's a network show, right? It's not like a Hulu exclusive.
I think it is a Hulu original, actually.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna have to check that out because, like I said, there were some actors that I recognized in there. I enjoyed the mashup. What you did, I can't believe you did it all manual though. Like,
Yeah.
how did you get those clips though? Were you just grabbing them off YouTube?
I went
or-
to YouTube and I typed in a video for like what do they call it when you a recap. I googled a recap thing for it, and then I found someone's video that was not too long. I think it was like 8 minutes. I recorded it, skipped through the crap I knew I didn't want. I
Mhm.
screen recorded, and then I got CapCut, uploaded it to that, and then I would just splice individuals, like little quick 1 to 3 second scenes, put them all on there in an order that I liked, and then
Mhm.
next at the end.
I have not used CapCut. I have a different tool that I use for video editing. It's the one that I used for that intro video. It was like a one-time buy it for a lifetime subscription for like, I don't know, $90. Otherwise, you can do yearly subscriptions for like 40. Um, just made sense. I had been using that same tool when I was developing training videos for one of the companies I worked for, and super comfortable, super easy to use, very professional looking. So the combination of that and then having these streams recorded, I could grab a bunch of those clips, put them all together, and do that as well. Do you use just the free version, or are you into like the CapCut Pro?
Yeah.
And
I just got it last night. Didn't upgrade it or anything.
gotcha. Um, how often do you plan on creating those videos and mashing them up?
Um, one every couple days. I'd like to do. Again, I don't feel like doing it. I'm just not gonna.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, we are live. We have a few early birds
uh,
that came in to say hello. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. I didn't know we were live, so I'm glad that you stopped me.
Yeah, no, we've been live. We had the intro video, but yeah, sometimes I like to just get the conversation nice and warmed up before we start interacting with the rest of the group here. So, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are hanging out here with Exotic, and it's gonna be kind of a quick-paced podcast today. It happens to be my son's 9th birthday today, and got to spend quite a bit of time with him already. Now I get to share some stories from some of the birthday events that we got to be doing in honor of his 9th. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the physical location, look at some pictures and some offerings there when that's planning to open up and what people can expect in there. And then, yeah, whatever else we feel like talking about or doing, we'll just do it. Or if anything's on your mind, if you wanted to start with anything on your mind first, we can start there too. And then, of course, we'll have our giveaways throughout. So we
Yeah,
may,
isn't it a heavy giveaway day?
it could be a heavy giveaway today, but I don't know. We'll play it as it comes. We may have one viewer on, we may have 150. Doesn't really matter. We'll play it by ear, and if we get quite a bit of interaction, sure, let's give away a bunch of stuff. I've got things locked and loaded and ready to hand out to our awesome community. You have to forgive me, for some reason I have this weird, like, I want to say it's like an allergy. I'll get this weird sneeze or cough, and then my whole face just squeezes in. Then my eyes turn beet red while we're chatting here. Sorry, I don't mean to scare anybody. It's not my intent. So, all right, let's get started with my son's birthday, right? So, we started the festivities over the weekend, and we went to Mall of America and did this. It's not an obstacle course. It's this big, giant, like, building area that they've converted into a laser tag section, a VR section, and then a Nerf gun section. It's called Tactical Urban Combat. Holy crap, dude. I want to be a kid again. We did not have this stuff growing up, man. Not at all.
We had Camp Snoopy.
Oh, yeah, we had awesome roller coasters and stuff, but when did you have like state of the art, like these awesome cool light up headbands, these like vests, these amazing like top tier laser guns? They had these different controls on there. You can choose whether you want to do like short burst with your laser, or if you want to do full auto or single shot. You could choose which type of gun it was, if it was going to be like a sniper rifle, or if it was going to be like a some type of semi-auto or auto machine gun, and I don't know, it was just so cool. And then they had like this medic button as well, that if you lost health, a teammate could hit the medic button and shoot your head on your team, and then it would refill your health bar, and then you're right back at it.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
sure that laser tag's come a long way because when I did it back in the day when I mean, almost every Friday, once the skating rink closed down, we turned to laser tag. And I mean, there were these big bulky vests with a big CPU thing and the
mm-hmm.
chest piece. The the headpieces for headshots were just bulky and heavy, flopping all over the place. Was it fun? Absolutely, but yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, when you fast forward 25 years, you're gonna have huge upgrades and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, they even had different like game modes. So the first one we did just the traditional. It was there were 20 people total, and it was a mix of adults and kids in there. So some of the dads, like some of the hockey coaches I coached with, and some of the other dads that I grew up with, we were all in there on a team against the kids. It was a 10 on 10. And seriously, you could run, like I'm talking run from one side of this area to another side without seeing anybody. Like that's how big this course was. And we had spawn points, so when you were shot, you had to go back to a spawn point. But that was the first game. And then the second game, we did a zombie outbreak. So you had one person that was like the zombie, and as you killed people, they turned into zombies. So they would have to go to a spawn point, either side of the map. You can go to a spawn point, but then you're a zombie, and as you kill more people, they turn into zombies. So you see all these like headbands that are blue that when you shoot them, they turn green, and oh, it was so cool. And then
Did you guys win the 10 on 10?
the 10 on 10, we won, and then the zombie, I was the first zombie, and yeah, I was getting destroyed by 19 people at first, but after I got a couple of kills, then it
Yeah,
was quick.
yeah.
It spread. And made me actually, I used to be one of those survivalist thinkers. I'd watch The Walking Dead and be like, oh yeah, I could do that. Oh, there's no way a zombie is gonna kill me. I'm too good. I'm too smart. That's that's not true, man. That's not true. Once that thing starts going and just spreading like wildfire, you start to panic like crazy. Oh,
We had a
I
pretty cool place
changed.
here before COVID hit. COVID put it out of business, but before COVID here, it was good for a couple of birthday parties that we did, and I like the game modes. There's a lot of different game modes. One of them was like they put these little treasure chests around,
Hmm.
and then most of them are empty, but you have to find like three, like first team to get three of whatever the items were. Then you have to go and push a button somewhere, and then once you do that, the other team can't respawn anymore. Like once they die, they die. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Laser tag's fun.
Yeah, the last game mode that we played was like a capture a fort. Like they had three different prominent fort positions that you just shoot, and then it becomes yours, and then the other team can come and take it as well. But along the way, they have different stations with modified weapons that had like increased damage, or it would automatically adjust your gun. So if you had like a grenade launcher, you couldn't have full auto grenade launchers. It would change you to a single shot. But it would do a huge amount of damage. I thought it was kind of cheesy because there was no splash damage. If I was gonna use a grenade launcher, I would want it to like launch in an area and take out like three of those little kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they had different weapon stations. They had a flamethrower one and stuff, and I don't know. Everything about the laser tag was amazing. Then we moved over to Nerf. Just didn't feel the same.
Yeah. I would have done Nerf then laser tag.
Yeah, we heard that a lot. Like we were all
Do you get
peaked.
after laser tag? Did you get a printout of like your kills and deaths and like all your stats?
So they didn't give us a printout, but they had the leaderboards up there, and I always had the highest.
Most shot because you're fucking huge. Because you're the tallest guy there. You're gonna be hit the most.
I did not, and with the size of this place, I even a large man like myself could hide very easily. Um, so I had the highest percentage of hit per shot. So I was between 30 and 45%, in all the games, and that was the highest of everyone. So every third shot was hitting somebody, which is kind of cool. Had most kills in the first one, and then the zombie one I infected the most, but that's pretty easy to do when you're the first zombie. So,
Right.
um, but the capture the fort one, I just had a higher percentage. But they just showed like the leaderboard of like top people in different categories, and then they didn't show a breakdown of how many kills versus deaths and all that. How many people use like the medic thing, you know. But yeah, super super cool. Nerf though, what a huge letdown. Like the guns looked sweet, but they didn't have enough. Um, I guess variety. How do I put it? So they had some guns that were really good, and then they had guns that were just terrible. They would jam up. They would be
Yeah.
hell to try to reload. And the worst part about it though is when we got in there, all our guns were pretty much empty, and we had to find like the little Nerf balls on the floor and load them ourselves. You have a bunch of kids that are like 8, 9, 10 years old that are part of this party. So every parent's like loading them up, and then they're shooting away. Oh, it's jammed, and then you're unjamming guns while you're loading for the kids, and like
That
where,
sounds like a disaster.
yeah, where are the pods? Like just having pods you could just load in there really quick and get
Yeah, it
rocking
should
and
be
rolling.
airsoft, not Nerf. I
Yeah.
don't know what my deal is though, but like I would never play um I would never personally play laser tag if I didn't know that there was a statistical print off at the end. Because like it's the same with video games. Like for example, if the first time I turned on Call of Duty, whether it be Modern Warfare 2 or whatever one it was,
Mhm.
if I would have played it and then don't have a kill death ratio, win loss ratio, and all the other stat, your accuracy, all that stuff, I wouldn't even play it. I
Hmm.
have to be able to track. I don't know if it's tracking my progress or what, but like I personally have to have statistics. Like I've played games with Rody before where I'm like, oh, this is all right, this is pretty cool, and then I'll be like, where's my kill death ratio? Like, where does it say how many people I've killed and how many times I've died? Like, oh, there isn't any of that. Well, I don't play that game anymore. Like, I don't know why I'm that way, but I have to have stats.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's kind of a symptom of the types of games that we always played, and seeing the final stats after a battle or cumulative stats from how long you've played the game. Um, I mean that's ingrained in our DNA now. We want the little KPIs to be understanding, how can we improve? How can we get better? Um,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a symptom of video games. People like data, man. They like seeing numbers. And if you don't like seeing
I mean,
numbers,
even like
oh.
a smartphone game like Retro Bowl, I'll play the shit out of that just to like get my quarterback in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? 'Cause, you know, how did this quarterback in one season have 100% passing accuracy? Like, I just want to see weird shit, and I want to do hard stuff, and I want to relish in it after the fact. Hey, babe, look what I did! I just did this whole season for the Detroit Lions. My quarterback has 100. I did not have anyone drop one single pass.
Oh, snap.
Shit. Like the new NCAA game, started a dynasty or no, it's called Road to Glory. You're in high school. Then you get it signed by a college.
Mm-hmm.
You get your scholarship. Then you start. After a season's up, it'll tell you how you're doing as far as any team records for your franchise. And then, you know what? I'm gonna go sign with another team. I'm tired of the colors from this team. I'm gonna go over to the Army team. I'm gonna go play for them. And then I'm gonna because Army has a lot of triple option. You're gonna just basically run the ball every time, and they're like, oh shit, I don't want to run the ball every play and lose again. That's what I did with NCAA. But I love looking at like breaking like all-time rushing record for like any player ever, or like for your specific team. and all
Mhm.
that stuff. I'm just all about data. You're right. I guess we're all about numbers, and we like. I watched a video not long ago. This kind of makes sense now. We're talking about this. I looked up like the top 100 games on Steam, and it was very quick shotgun of like all the games from 100 down to all the way up to one. And one of them was Vampire Survivor. It was number like 6 or 7, but it looked like Castlevania from frickin' '95. You know what I mean? Like, this game looks like shit. Why is this one of the highest rated games on here? So then I took a deep dive, and there's a lot of games like it also that have not anywhere near as good as feedback and star ratings. Then I found another video as to why it's so highly rated or highly sought after to play. Apparently, it's all in the numbers. Like when you do damage to these skeletons and the numbers of damage pops up, the way that they did the numbers, I guess it's like you're almost like the excitement you get when you get into a casino and you have that fresh air and you hear all the dings from the slot machines and you
Mhm.
you hear the people excited and just it's just like, oh my god, I'm gonna have so much fun here. You barely just got in the door, but apparently, Vampire Survivor is such a highly rated game is because once you start playing, you can't stop because you're seeing all these numbers, and you're killing enemies fast because it's one of those games where you're in the center of the screen and they're just like swarming you and you're
Mhm.
just killing them and trying to stay alive as long as you can. But because it's like, 43,000 damage, 49,000 damage, and the colors of the numbers change, and it just feels like you're in a casino.
Yeah.
So, after watching that video, it was, eye opening as to how much people like it just because the numbers that you do during damage, because it's not visually stunning as far as the graphics go. It's not.
Mhm.
But with all those really high numbers up there, apparently the thought process of this has also made games like Monster Hunter and other games out there do more damage.
Mhm.
But then they came with a whole nother problem is like, oh, it's not too appealing when you swing your sword one time and you're doing 8.3 billion damage to this dragon or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you can't go too crazy. You got to
Mhm.
scale it right. But hello, Maurice. Thanks for being a first time chatter and thanks for the follow. Welcome, man.
Yeah, man, so StarCraft actually got me hooked on numbers, right? The getting the resources and then
Yeah, so send
yeah.
the right things to the right resources to
Mhm.
then build stuff at the right amount of time. That way you could get your certain unit that you're getting out of the barracks to attack them before they're gonna get to wherever
Yeah.
they need to be to defend it. Yeah, I know
Mhm.
exactly what you mean. Like
So
playing Age of Empires recently is very similar to that, where you have to like follow a plan.
so I got hooked in custom game modes for a long time in StarCraft. I want to say there was like a good 7 to 10 month stretch where all I did were these different defense type games. And what you would do is you would arrange your different units that you could pay for based on the kills that you would get. So it's very much like Hunters on Chain, where you could upgrade characters, but you could also buy more units though, and then get them arranged. And the strategy was you always wanted to create like this maze because these different things that were coming, they weren't going to attack. They were always on this path to reach this endpoint. Your goal is to always kill them before they reach there. So they would have all these numbers up, like a leaderboard, who's got the most kills, how many people have they let through, what their damage output was, what types of units were coming next, what units were available. I don't know, just and a plethora of data thrown at you at once, and then you're just trying to find the winning combination. What's the best maze strategy? What are the best units? Oh, at this corner, they get hung up and they kind of stick there and they group up. That's maybe a good place to put like a fire bat. So the fire goes out there and you're doing splash damage, and that does even more. So then you're starting to do all these strategies like, oh, I can get this little Zergling to hit at this one key point because this is where the big guys get hung up and they can just sit there and you can boost their speed and just have them. I don't know, man. It's kind of make
There's
me
something
want to
about
go
Zerg
dive
like
back
a like
in.
a school of Zerglings running
Mm-hmm.
that's so appealing visually. They're like rabid hellhounds, but with a little bit creepier. I don't even know what they are, fangs or arms or something. But like quick little fuckers, and when you breed them, you get 2 per sack, I think, if I
Yep,
remember right.
that's right.
So like, no Zerg rush, no rushing. Fuck you, I'm rushing.
Absolutely not gonna do that.
Me and my friend, I probably told you this, but me and another Jimmy friend of mine would pretend to do 3-player free for all, but then gang up on them.
Oh my gosh, what a
So we would like bait someone to join our lobby, and then we would just destroy them. I was a
if
toxic 14-year-old, apparently.
if you were not playing rated games, I would be like, you know what, all power to you. What I used to do is I would get a buddy of mine from school and I would just tell him, hey, just follow my lead. Whatever I tell you to do, just do it. Because we would play one of the smaller maps and we would both be Terran. And if we saw a Zerg, we would send all our SUVs or SCVs, yep, to that base of the Zerg and kill all their workers. And then we would go back and then they would be basically stuck because they're not gathering resources. They only have one that they could create. They'd be set back like maybe 5-10 minutes, and we're set back very minimally, and then it would be 2-on-1 because we would destroy all their workers. The other one, we would leave if they didn't have any Zerg, or if we didn't have any Zerg opponents, then we would change our strategy up a little bit. But anytime we saw Zerg, we just sent all our SCVs there. It would be so pissed. You'd see in the chat, cheaters, this is Bush League, this is terrible. And we're just kids like, ah!
And now we're adults and we try to play new games and we get freaking dunked on by
Oh, we
kids.
get murked. Yeah.
Get shit on. Get shit on.
Well, our reflexes aren't as fast as we get older. Like these kids playing first-person shooters, man. Even the younger adults, like in the 20s, maybe even the early 30s, they might have the speed to do it, but I can't. And my son, I never had him playing like first-person shooter games, because he was young. He just turned 9 though. I'm starting to introduce, that type of culture, and um, all his friends have been playing console games and first person shooter games for the past year or 2 years because he's kind of younger than them. Um, and I just felt like he's got to get back into it. So that's why I just recently got him Fortnite. He's gonna start playing Fortnite so he can play with his friends. They're getting in VR headsets though. I gotta get another VR headset. Do you have one? A VR?
Yeah, it's my son's, so I don't use it.
Is
And
it?
I played golf with it before, but maybe it's just not my thing.
Yeah, I'm hoping with AI they can program those features, and if they can partner with like Unreal Engine or something. Can you imagine Unreal Engine 5 with AI? Oh man. I'm excited for what NPCs are gonna look like with AI in video games. I keep geeking out about that, you know?
Well, is this a good time to talk about our quantum computer?
So quantum computing is kind of completely separate from AI. AI with quantum computing, I think, is going to reshape anything we ever thought was possible. But quantum computing is, man, how do I? So I'm gonna dumb it down from dumbed down videos that were dumbed down for a dummy like me. Is that a good way to put it?
Sure.
Okay, all right. So quantum computing is about a position that exists and a position that it potentially could be. So it runs on these pairs of it could be on and off. When you're talking ones and zeros, it can be a 1 and 0 in any sort of position at any time at all times. Kind of sounds crazy. So something could
Position.
be, but couldn't be all at the same time in
Sounds like
quantum.
Schrodinger's cat.
What's that? Short
Uh,
Schrodinger's.
Schrodinger's
Oh,
cat.
yep. But the test with
Is it
Schrodinger's cat is
superposition?
correct.
Superposition.
That's exactly it. If you look at it, then all of a sudden it's no longer
Yeah.
in a superposition. That's kind of like quantum computing. It exists but doesn't exist, and then depending on when it's looked at, it may or may not exist. So it creates all these like alternate reality options for you that's making decisions in both cases of yes and no in almost simultaneous, branches, yet it's all kind of communicating back to these other positions that may or may not exist. And it's doing it at a scale that's going so fast that it's making complex problems become simplified based on the number of alternate options that could address that particular question.
So
So
it seems like to me that we're just living in a quantum computer's reality.
very much, there's a lot of people that buy into simulation theory, where we are living in a simulation just simply because I I'm not gonna even speak to it because I'm not as fluent or educated in simulation theory as I want to be, um, or what makes them think that it's right now. The people that are looking into it believe it's a coin flip. It's 50-50 that everything
Hmm.
that we're doing is a complete simulation. It's just crazy to me. It's absolutely
Um,
crazy.
I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that said that he thinks it's a coin flip too. I think he said that.
There's a lot of leading experts in the physicist field when they're talking about quantum physics, when they're talking about theoretical, they're talking about simulation as well. Um, yeah, could quantum computing kind of break that fourth wall for us? When you talk about our limited senses with what we can see on the spectrum for sight, for sound, we have very limited senses that create our reality when there could be an entity like just beyond this camera looking at me right now, and he's just on it, or she or it's on this different frequency that I can't hear, see, taste, touch, feel. The vibrations from the energy that creates that particular being, that could very well be a possibility. I could have a whole fan base right here. So we could have nobody in our stream right now, yet have the entire alternate reality watching us as we're talking. That's
You,
simulation.
what do you think about the idea that our energy, our souls, the things that make us tick, whatever you want to call it, that we're just in another reality, right? But we plug into this one just to give it a spin. And the fact that we're here for maybe 90 years or so is like the blink of an eye for our higher being that is just plugged into this reality.
I think I think one of the talks that I heard before that I kind of bought into was not necessarily we are a reflection of somebody that's simulating living this life. I think we are one of the possibilities for somebody's particular outcome that they're attempting to achieve with decisions that they're making. Like I think that's more realistic that we're more or less the NPCs in some other buddy's world that is trying to accomplish some sort of goal, and then we're just simply kind of like the butterfly wings that flap and have some sort of impact on what's going to happen. And we're just one of many realities where if I say the word banana, I could have said giraffe. I could have said something completely inappropriate and could have caused somebody to have some sort of feelings towards that, and that could have had a chain effect. And I truly think that we could be a part of some kid playing a video game, just hopping in and simulating like I want to achieve this, and then all of a sudden all these realities start kicking off, and then by choices that they're making, they're just kind of navigating through these multi-realities to achieve whatever that ultimate goal is. I don't know. It's fun to think about, right?
Mhm.
Late night deep thoughts.
Well, it's actually kind of close to one of my texts that I sent you on one of my late night deep thoughts.
Yeah, talk to me about some of these texts because I swear
I feel
sometimes
like
I look at them and I'm like, I don't know if I have the mental capacity to talk to you about this.
why don't you read one to the viewer or to the listeners, and then I will dissect it for you.
All right. All right.
For the
Let's
people that
see.
don't know, though, these are texts that I send Billion every now and then at night when my head's floating to the sleep land. And before I go to sleep land, might be a
Oh
little,
man.
maybe a little tired. But
All
I get these
right.
thoughts and I text Billion so I don't forget.
Here's one that I'm still pondering, and I've tried to Google search and try to figure out what this is, but I'll need your help. Remembering people in history, father dies, kid bears witness. Alexander the Great. What? What
I'm
in
really
the
glad that that was
world?
one that you started with because this kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Okay? So I'm laying in bed, super late at night, can't sleep, having these deep thoughts. And I had a show on. It was a history show. Don't know what the name of it was because I watched so many. But it was an episode about Alexander the Great. It was a two-part episode about Alexander the Great. Okay? Alexander the Great accomplished a lot in not a lot of time. He died in his like young 30s. He took power when his dad was murdered at the age of 20. So Alexander took power at the age of 20, and he conquered so much, right? Egypt, Sumer, and Israel, and Iraq. I think he was dabbling into Iran, all kinds of shit. Anyway, we have all, when I say we, I mean the people on this planet of learning age have most likely all learned of Alexander the Great. Obviously, there's going to be some onesies and twosies of people that don't know who he is because of learning disabilities or whatever. But that's one. Would you agree that Alexander the Great is a pillar of history on our planet?
A prominent figure in history, correct.
Okay. So my thought process that night was the Alexander the Great thing and the son bears witness to to his dad's death were two different things, but they work together, and let me explain why. So let's use an example. I'll just use myself as an example. Let's say that I pass away whenever, and my kids just for whatever maybe they didn't enjoy their upbringing for whatever reason. They didn't ever talk about me to anyone. They never wrote any books about me. Like the buck stops with your kids, usually. Okay, so what my message was is it is almost a scary thing where we're gonna live until we're not living anymore, and then most likely we're never gonna be remembered because unless you're inventing the telephone, you're president of a country, you are Alexander the Great, or a Genghis Khan is I guess how you're supposed to pronounce it. These figures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Graham Bell, all these people did something magnificent. Hitler, something terrible, right? Many terrible atrocities. he's always going to be remembered because of his dickishness was maxed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's these things that we all learn about. It's because they had to do something either really fucking terrible or really amazing or invent something great to be remembered. But you and me, well, maybe you there's still a chance you could become an astronaut or something. So like maybe not you, but like a random regular person on our planet, unless their kids are writers and they want to do, you know, books about their parent, like we're not gonna be remembered. To extend from that, when I think of my dad and my mom, I care about them a lot, right? I know a lot about them, and I could tell you almost anything you wanted to know about them. Grandparents, same story. My grandparents are still here. Thank God. I'm so thankful for that. My grandpa's my best friend. My grandma's amazing. It's my great grandparents. I didn't know my great grandfather at all. Don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything about him. I'm assuming that my grandpa loved his dad a lot, but he never told me really anything about him, right? My great grandma, I only played cards with her. We never really did anything else. Was she nice? She was super nice, but like my kids don't know anything about her,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what I'm saying is that a generation is such a blip on our planet,
Yeah.
and most of the time we're not even going to be remembered for any of the things that we've done. Granted, I haven't done anything like so freaking stellar and amazing to be remembered by. Um, I don't think that just joining the military and deploying a few times is going to get you remembered and put on a book anywhere. But the idea of how easy it is to forget about our existence is kind of crazy if you really, really think about that. But then if you think about all the people that you know of, Alexander the Great, for example, there's these amazing stories about he walks into Egypt and they give him the keys of the castle because they didn't like the people that were ruling him before. And then he goes and he conquers all these different places in Iraq and he does all this shit and it's just so crazy cool. We're always going to be remembering the Alexander the Greats, but there's really just not a lot of them, right? Like if you really put in all the people that you know a lot about that weren't alive when you were alive, like there's not a lot of those.
Well, we're just
So
talking
really,
about Western culture too, right? And we're talking in reference to a country that's like 300 years old with some Eastern culture references in our textbooks. You look at
I'm
a
talking about anyone on the planet.
okay,
Because even the Egyptians didn't know how to decipher hieroglyphs until we found the Rosetta Stone, and we had to help them do that.
mhm,
So if they're not remembering how the pyramids got there, that must have been a pretty uneventful pyramid build. Because you would think that like no structures on the planet. Let's build a pyramid. What's a pyramid? I'm going to show you. Give me all these millions of people to help us do this. All right, boom. Fast forward years and years and years. Here's the pyramid. Did they not tell anybody about it? Like, did they not like, when I was your age, Helen, I built a pyramid brick by brick, and I was in charge of the left cornerstone, and my friend, Zangief, frickin' was killed by a boulder, and there's these stories that people pass down. I'm just saying we don't pass shit down unless it's in a history book.
true, and there's people that control history and control the content that's being sent out to people. What I was making a reference to though is you look at a culture like ours, where we have this government that's been around since 1776 for the US, but then you look at a culture like China that has a prominent empire for the past 3,000 years. So you compare almost 300 to an almost 3,000 year, and you look at the differences in the way that they capture history and pass it down. They've refined that to a point. It kind of reminds me of the Game of Thrones episode where Jaime Lannister is looking through past nights, and we're looking at these
Mm-hmm.
pages, and we weren't told about some of these figures that were in here. Now, if George R. R. Martin decided to write books that spun off and introduced some of these characters, like when they did the flashback for Ned when he was younger, and showed like the one crazy swordsman that nobody could ever take down, but then Ned took him down. That kind of relates to what we're talking about, where what are you doing with your life that could be remembered? Another crazy quote that I love, absolutely love, and I'll watch this movie anytime that it's on, is from Troy, when Brad
Love that
Pitt's
movie.
playing that Achilles character, and he says to the boy when he's getting on his horse that that's why you won't be remembered. He wasn't saying it because he was a dick. He was just saying it because the choices that we make with the time that we have, the very small time that we have, could very well echo out into history. And I don't think that you're too old right now to make that type of wave. Everybody has that opportunity. I mean, Alexander Bell, he was 29 years old. You're talking about Alexander the Great when he was 20 years old. You've got other people like Isaac Newton. He was 25 when he came up with all of that stuff, or by the time he was 25, came up with all that stuff. Created calculus, created this, that, all at 25. Um, those are younger folks. Genghis Khan, a younger guy, just went on for, I don't know, I can't remember how long he was off the top of my head. But you've got all these figures but then there are older inventors. There are ones like Tesla that was later in his life finding, different new theories or different new projects to work on. People are making strides, waves at 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. Uh, uh, the, God, this is terrible if I can't remember. Henry Ford. Henry Ford was in his late 40s or early 50s when he started the plant in Detroit. Just started the manufacturing of automobiles in the US at a grand scale in his late 40s. And Henry Ford's going to be one of those names that people are going to be talking about for a long time. I was watching a podcast where they were doing an exercise though, and they were talking about similar to what we were talking about, or what we are talking about right now. Think about people in our culture right now, and just, an easy name right now would be like, oh, Elon Musk. That might be a name that's remembered for a long while. And how some people view Trump, they think he is going to be, for better or worse, on two totally extremes, going to be remembered for a very long time.
Yeah, he'll
But
be remembered for one of the best presidents and one of the worst presidents of all time in the same sentence.
in the same sentence, same breath. He'll be the
Yeah.
most awful, worse than Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, all wrapped into one. And then he'll be, I don't know, on the grounds of Jesus for
Mm-hmm.
others. Like it's such a crazy, uh, crazy extreme on both sides. But think of other people like musicians. Your favorite musician. We can talk about Beethoven, Mozart. We can rattle off some of these, you know, people from way back when. Will we remember? I don't know, Juicy J. Will we remember Lil Wayne? Will we remember uh, Kendrick Lamar? In 100 years from now, are those going to be musicians that people are going to be hearing about?
I'm
They're
gonna say
doing,
only if their music is still easily accessed,
yeah,
right? Like if something happens catastrophe wise that like puts us in a reset state, then no, Lil Wayne's not gonna be remembered because no one is gonna give a shit about someone that sings songs for a living when you're, trying to find canned goods to eat out of because you're fucking trying to survive and keep your kids alive. I think
yeah.
that's a lot of the issues in our past have been. So, uh, this is a decent segue into the thing I texted you last night or the night before. Let me pull it up so that way everyone knows what it said. But,
Usually starts with uh,
Yeah, I know what it usually starts.
Usually starts with something. The Illuminati.
Okay, yeah.
The
Okay.
Illuminati was formed as cavemen.
Okay. This is great. Okay, I really need you to stay grounded and open your mind for this one, okay?
My mind's always open. I can't
Okay.
help logic though.
I need you to fucking rewind, let your brain rewind back to cavemen days, okay? This is before we were this is hunter gatherer cavemen living with maybe dinosaurs and other crazy animals, right? Okay? You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are no buildings yet, right? Everyone's living in a cave or in a prairie or in a tree. Like nothing's built. Everything is just natural.
Mm-hmm.
Got me? Okay. You and me, we're cavemen best friends. Okay?
Always,
And we're
homie.
out we're out with our spears and we're trying to get
Yep.
boars. We're doing our thing, right? And this is the conversation, all right? So you're gonna have to help me with this because I'm not
Okay.
giving
All
you a
right.
script.
All right, I'm in.
All right. Hey, I'm really getting tired of this whole hunting thing.
You know, what other options would we have if we weren't hunting? I don't want to starve right now. And I'm
That is
a
a
big
fan.
guy. I'm hungry.
No, yeah, you're at least like a foot taller than me. I get it. You need to eat, and we can't stop hunting unless. Why don't we create a group, right, where we bully people into doing the hunting for us, where we give them security, okay? Because we're big, tough, young, athletic dudes that are really good at hunting. We're mobile, we're strong, capable dudes. And those cave ladies over there, they want to bear our children. So let's just do what we want to do and let other people do the hunting for us. Let's create a hunting group and we'll tell them what meats we want them to go get us. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, what I'm getting at is there were two ways for a society to be made: someone to take power and have an influence over people, for the people to work and want to work to build these things to get paid with the piece of paper or coins or whatever, right? Because before that building, before that community, they were just living in trees and caves. Or the other way, other than getting notoriety and having people do it, is someone's already done it and then you take it over with sheer force, right? Okay, those are
All
the
right.
only two ways.
Okay.
So in way number one, you're creating a deep state of cavemen who are in charge of things, but they don't really lift a finger, which is essentially why we live the way we live now, is because we're not out there. I mean, you can hunt for fun, but we're not out there trying to find dinosaur eggs, chicken eggs, freaking alligator eggs. We're not out there hunting boar. I
Nope.
mean, again, we can for fun,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason that we're able to do this is because all of these things have been created, built, developed to where it's either done A, automatically by machines, or B, done by other people that get paid to do it. Okay? So what I'm saying is that they had to have an idea a long ass time ago that they didn't want to hunt anymore and they wanted it to be brought in front of their lap. And if you're poor, no one's bringing you food and letting you have a huge rotisserie chicken just came off the freaking cave pit fire.
Mm-hmm.
Here, have this, eat this. So what I'm saying is that bullies that had that were able to bully people into fighting for them or joining their army, or really good people with leadership qualities that people wanted to be around and wanted to work for. That's the only two ways that it is that we're so advanced now, is because they just didn't want to hunt anymore.
Yeah.
My feet hurt. Man, it would be really cool if our feet didn't hurt all the time. Let's mass produce flip flops. What's a flip flop? Grab these two leaves, puncture a hole in it, and it starts slow, but
Mm-hmm.
we are in an explosion, right?
Yep.
Because at first it's just building wells and getting that easily drinkable water. You don't have to travel as far to go get your water, and then you start to have because we started in like Turkey, our DNA states or something like that. It's like Africa up to Turkey was like where we started out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether that was because we found a magic mushroom as a monkey and it turned us into a human, or whatever you believe. Okay, but that's where we started, and we just kind of went out from there. And the way that I think that happened is the people that left were the people that were being bullied or didn't want to work for someone, or they had to follow the migration of the animals,
Yep, yep. But
right?
what you're describing mostly is like a society, though. You're describing a development of society. Now, what
And then
makes
there's
that?
always puppet masters to the society.
That's what
There's
I'm looking for, though. What's the Illuminati tie? Like, where's this leadership or higher power? Because they've always had in from the history that we've been taught, they've always had tribal leaders. They were usually the biggest, the strongest, the bravest that were leaders, and they would instruct where we were going to hunt and assign people certain roles and also determine what, as judge, jury, and executioner, what to do with people that violated certain agreements of the pact that they had. So now, who was controlling those leaders? We don't
I think
have a lot of like reference to if that potentially occurred, where there were certain plants that were put into place to drive a certain agenda, hidden behind the shadows, which is what I would kind of reference or refer to as an Illuminati. So how do you think those two tie in together?
okay, that's a great question, and I am very excited to walk you through a day in the life of my brain.
Perfect.
So, whether you take over a civilization, a community, or whatever with force, or you created it with people loving you and wanting to make a living, and they like the idea of money and coins and being paid to work, because that always wasn't around. Like you didn't just open your cave door and you could trade for stuff like, hey, I got this fucking muskrat last night and I would love a little bit of your turtle. Like there's always that. But what I'm saying is that they bullied themselves into acquiring land and people, or they did it because the people loved them because they had a really cool story. They maybe their mom was the shaman of the area, and that's how they rose to power. But essentially, the the day in the life of my brain says that those people, those bullies, or those people in charge, then at one point had to create their currency. And if you're the person creating your currency, for example, if you created a meme coin tomorrow, wouldn't you have a lot of it? I'm assuming you'd give yourself a lot of it, whether you're going to lock it away for a long time or whether you're going to sell some of it and dump it right away, whatever you decide. But you create a currency, then that means that you're giving yourself the power to have a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that it went from what you were stating earlier to what it is now. Happy birthday! What it is now is it's the people that are rich and in control of the money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there was a bit of over hundreds and thousands of years, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds and thousands of years. It just morphed from the big strong guy that nobody wanted to fight. Now the big strong guy operates the treasury because and that's the same way that I think that the people in the Middle East that are like princes and they're super rich and they have
Mm-hmm.
all this oil. Do you think that they were in their backyard of their shitty shanty and they put their fucking spade in the backyard and all this oil came out? No. I feel like those people that have all that money have all of it because they took it from someone else.
Yeah, yeah. And again, that's where my brain starts going to, well, that's where they appointed councils eventually, right? So they knew that leaders could be corrupt and that leaders were power hungry, that wanted to mass hoard different either precious materials or wanted to hoard the community to carry out their bidding, whether it's creating a bigger hut, or uh, you know, having access to certain land that may have been pre or dominated by another tribe. And then they introduced these wise council members, these great leaders to oversee these different tribes, and said, "We'll help you thrive. We know the formula to thrive." That's where I think the Illuminati is kind of spawning, is from these great elders that think they have all the answers, and that none of the members of the community are capable of foreseeing or understanding or knowing what's best for the masses. Oh no! I was trying to do a giveaway and it's forcing me to update. What a jerk. Like, literally, I had the map up, me and Wick were hanging out, and then it just killed. That's terrible. I'm going to try to get that back up so we can get that giveaway going again. So that's where I think it spawned, where you had a bad actor that was maybe power hungry, that was kind of put in their place. They're biding their time. They're waiting to become a part of the council. Maybe they had like a head person that was like the determinator, the the tiebreaker vote, the one that said, "I see both sides. You both, argue about this. I'm making the final choice." I think a bad actor got into that place, and then he started passing it down to one of their, you know, shadows, and then their shadows eventually rose to that spot and passed it down to another shadow, and then, eventually over time, with enough corrupt people fighting to take over that type of spot and creating shadows, then they've put themselves in a prominent position of control to tell these tribes what's right, what's wrong. You don't follow the rules, we're going to get all these other tribes to force you to follow the rules. That's where my brain would go if I'm thinking Illuminati, is a bad actor reaching some sort of like elder level rather than just like some tribe hoarder, because we have those types of references to how culture and society and how humans interact every day, happening all around us, from businesses that people work at in corporate America, in their CEOs and their board of directors, and then they have influences externally from like government entities that then oversee that know what's best for it. What we're trying to unveil, what we're trying to uncover, is who are those puppet masters that are beyond what's in our visibility, right? So when you then transport back to like cave time days, if you look at like Hollywood references to it, they're like oracles, they're like witches, they are these like mythological creatures that are always referenced in like Hollywood, where these leaders, like, remember the movie 300 with Gerard Butler, right? Before he can go and stand off against the big uh, army that's coming his way, God, I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. Xerxes? Is
Yeah.
that what it was?
Yeah.
Uh, do you remember what that horde, that army was called, that were
Mm,
coming to Sparta?
no. I can see it
I
in my
can't.
head like I'm watching the movie, but I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah, before he takes his 300 and protects that choke point, he goes and he talks to the oracles.
Hmm.
Almost kind of like a reference that before any war happens, you talk to somebody else. Even the people at the very top, they have to consult with other people. And we just assume, like, if we're looking at the US, because that's where we're from, if we're looking at the US, is the president relying on his actual war generals, his like war room with the top tactical minds that are out there that understand war? Or do they have influence discussion by maybe somebody that's above them, that's coming in that we're not made aware of, that's talking to them about the repercussions of their actions? I mean, everybody's always on the edge of their seat thinking World War III is going to happen any day now with the current regime that's in place and the flirting with Russia and Ukraine, and then where nobody's talking about China anymore other than the AI race. Wasn't China a threat at one point? I mean, they're buying a bunch of land in the US, so that was a topic of discussion for a while. That's kind of been swept under the rug. North Korea, no longer are we talking about Kim Jong Un. I mean, we're talking about him, but not talking about him. Like, yeah, he's kind of off playing. Or is there some other entity like an Illuminati that's like, don't worry, guys, we've got this under control. Let's control the narrative and let's get people distracted how we want them distracted, and stop all
Yeah.
this shenanigans stuff.
I feel like there's a lot of that. I feel like someone or this hidden group has their fingers on the pulse of our thoughts. You know, they know what crazy, news stories need to come out on certain days because they need to move the agenda or the position of thought to something else.
Hmm.
I think that it's only when things are convenient for them to share it, that's when it gets shared. For example, a couple weeks ago, um, he had found an article about uh, that, that there was a bunch of stuff discovered under a pyramid that makes it look like it was a power plant. Okay, which is really exciting for me because this is the kind of shit that I look to find on a daily basis.
Hmm.
I love learning about ancient apocalypses and pyramids and Antarctica, like all this shit, right? But then finding it on any other news source is like pulling teeth. If we were living in a world where only really interesting things were brought to light, then a power plant being discovered under a pyramid would be on all news sources the same day that it's discovered.
All right, we have our answer, by the way. Persians. The Persians were coming to attack
Oh, I thought
Sparta.
you meant I thought you meant that like they were called like the Sparta Killers or something, like that they had a name like a mascot name or something. I would have just told you the Persian army. I thought you meant that they had a specific name.
No, for the life of me, my brain just blanked on Xerxes' army, and it was the Persian army. They had different tribes and different communities, different countries that were aligning with them as they basically just rolled in and overtook them. But yeah, it was primarily the Persian army, and then the sensationalized those faceless people, the ones that wore the masks and were like ninjas and.
Yeah. You know what I find kind of crazy. So right now, if you look at like a map of the world and the countries, there's all the lines that are separating country to country.
Yep.
You know, those lines almost mean nothing because when you rewind and take a step back. Okay, so let's just use the Xerxes as an example, right? Xerxes wants to go to Sparta, use the Persian army to completely obliterate Rome and the Spartans and all that.
Hmm.
But he can only do as much as his followers, his soldiers are willing to do, right? The moment that Xerxes does something fucked up that they don't agree with, they can stage a coup where they, murder him or just refuse to work for him anymore and then give the power to somebody else. And I think it's funny. It's almost like now that there's lines on the map, we've forgotten that like we didn't always like we right now we have to be followers of whoever's voted in or whoever the president or the king or the queen or whoever are, right? But back then you do some shit that your followers don't like, you're not going to be fucking ruling for very long.
No.
How many coups have been successfully accomplished in the history of the world that goes all the way back to just the tribe of dudes in the freaking man cave? You know, the cavemen, you know, they probably have
Man
like a,
cave.
you know, tribe of 10 dudes and, you know, a couple ladies, right? And there's somebody that's in charge of that. You're only in charge as long as you're doing a good job. They stop getting to eat every day. They stop finding water. They're in bad hunting grounds.
Doesn't matter how
Like,
strong you are at that point. Yeah.
it's just crazy that like so many people are mad about their leadership. No matter now, I'm just not saying United States only. I'm saying everywhere. Okay, and it's almost like these people that are in these leadership roles forgot that they have to do a fucking good job. How many presidents have we had that have promised A, B, and C? I don't care what freaking party they're from. They all have an agenda. Well, I guess except for the, never mind, not going there. They usually have an agenda. They tell you what they want to do. They tell you what they want to change, what they can do to make your life better, right? The people that are billionaires, their life's going to be great no matter what. So they're going to preach towards the middle class. They're going to fix homelessness. They're going to take care of the vets, blah, 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 right? But we're so used to them not doing any of that.
Yeah.
Any of that, right? I mean, I remember growing up that my dad was all excited that when Bill Clinton got presidency, he was excited that he was going to balance the budget because my dad's a businessman. He knew that the budget needed to be balanced, right? So like these things were like exciting because when you were you ever involved in any of your schools of like votes for like who's going to be the president or the chairperson, the treasurer, like in your school? Did you ever do that?
I did not get involved in our school politics. I was
With like a
predominantly
debate
in
team.
sport. Yeah, I didn't get involved in debate until I got into college. But
Well,
yes.
one thing I learned early is, and when I was in fifth grade, there was all that. And there was this kid that promised new vending machines with these candies and sodas and stuff, right? And I remember hearing them like, I'm voting for that guy because I want, you know, Orange Crush in my vending machine or whatever. He wins because he says he promises to put new vending machines in, but doesn't follow through. That's
Yeah.
basically what we have prior to this presidency, I'd say. I mean, there's whether you agree with what our current president is doing or not, I feel that he is accomplishing a lot of things. Whether he's accomplishing things you like or not, that's all your perspective. But we're not used to this. We're not used to someone taking office and then 104 executive orders are signed. You know, we're used to someone taking office and we don't hear from them for a few years. You know, because they're getting rich in the pockets and we don't even know how. That's because it's the deep state, the Illuminati, the oracles, right?
The oracles.
The oracles from the past. You know, these are just things that they wanted to do, and they're going to control the money. So the money goes to the people that they need to push the discussions in a direction that they know that they want us as the people to listen. Yeah, man, I think that it's just really crazy, and my mind goes off on these tangents when I think about caveman days to current time.
Yeah.
Because I think that the only reason that we're living in this technology boom and we're living in this gaming world where we can have AI and we can get freaking headsets and this cool stuff is because somewhere along the line someone got really lazy and wanted to stop hunting for food, and he started bullying his way into, or maybe he didn't bully anybody to make them hunt for him, but maybe he just went and took the food that they hunted for themselves.
Took it as
Right?
a cost of business. Like, hey, you guys bring me some food, and here's what I can accomplish if I don't have to spend my time trying to hunt food.
Yeah.
Probably
I mean,
a collective agreement there.
There is something going on that changed the way that we think. And our DNA has come a long way since then. I think a whole 1.5% from the monkeys. from the chimpanzees. We're only a point to a point and a half of DNA difference between them from what I read,
From
I think.
chimpanzees, I think it's like 98.6% or
Okay,
90, maybe 99%.
let's call it a percent and a half. Let's keep it easy. So if we're a percent and a half difference of DNA to a chimpanzee, imagine whatever's ahead of us if it's a percent and a half.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can get into your starship and just close your eyes and put your freaking hand on the wall, and then it attunes to your body, and then you just think where you want to go, and then boom, you're there. You
Now you're
think
in my
about
world.
yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
Well, you're
Um,
looking back at cavemen. I'm looking in the future at these
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I do look.
possibilities.
It is true. I look backwards more than I look forwards into like Back to the Future was doing like they said that the Cubs would win the World Series in 2015, and like they're looking forward a lot. I like to look backwards. Um, but yeah, you know how my brain works late at night, man. I'm always gonna send you the fun stuff. I knew that you would appreciate the.
I
Uh,
I always appreciate and honestly, sometimes I'm just like, oh, am I mentally in a position where I can take on a conversation like this? Because I'm gonna be up all night if I start thinking about it, like all night, and I'm gonna start doing deep research. I'm gonna be, you know, participating with you in the chats back and forth, and you're gonna be like, dude, I gotta go to bed, and I'm gonna be like, no, and then you're gonna be like, okay, and then we're gonna keep going, and then I have to get to work the next morning, and oh, I'm gonna be a puddle, but this is too interesting. Like, oh man, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna indulge. The next time, I'm gonna just let it happen. You're gonna bring up father, son, Alexander. I'm gonna be like, what the fuck? Let's get into this. Let's do this. I'm ready.
I I do feel that okay, so back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean hundreds of thousands of years, we used to live like longer from what I've heard and read. We used to like have a higher life expectancy way back in the day when we were super active and we were hunting and we were doing our thing. We were living above 120 years old.
So there's debate about that because of some of the scripture that references that. You talk about Abraham, when he was almost 200 years old and was having his first conversations with God. And this is not meant to be a religious sort of podcast, just making references to history. There are figures that had stated, they've lived well past 100, well past 200. They were having
Hmm.
kids well past 200. Um,
Yeah, there's
it,
plenty of people in Genesis alone that were above 200.
yep,
I remember.
yep. So they're making references to this, but I mean, when you talk about that time frame, that's definitely within that 100,000 years biologically, how our bodies are made up. There are certain people that have purposely put themselves away from the more consumer focused products that have preservatives, that have alterations to certain foods, how they can use science to manipulate, like bananas, for example, bananas in the wild compared to bananas you would find at a grocery store. There's people that have kept themselves away from it that are still not living past 100 or well into their hundreds. What would be that change? Is it because of certain enzymes that we were consuming that manipulated our DNA to allow us to live longer? Or what would you think would, you
I'm
know?
so glad you asked because I wanted to say this anyway. I feel this was another one of I didn't text you this one, but I this was one of my late night thoughts. It's because we got lazy. So let me break it down.
But not
Let me break
everybody's
it.
lazy though. Not
No, no, no. I
everybody's
know,
lazy.
but let me break it down. I feel that okay. Let's just look at it from a present time perspective. You got a guy. He turns 20. He joins the police force. He does 30 years. He makes it to chief, and awesome dude, great at his job, kept his community safe, did his thing. He retired, died 2 weeks later. you hear about this kind of stuff in jobs of activity, military, firefighters, cops, people that are in these fields that are active, very active, and then they retire, become inactive. Um, their entire body, I think, chemically changes. They start sleeping in. Their metabolism gets slower. They're not out there hunting for that wild boar, so there's nothing that gets them out of bed except for to get into their lazy boy, grab the TV remote and a book, or maybe they're living in a camper in in the Midwest, enjoying that retirement life. And really the hardest thing he has to do all day long is decide whether he's gonna go to the grocery store and get chicken or beef to put on the grill. And I think that when you live in, I don't want to say, how do I want to put this, when your life revolves around things that you have to do to survive, I think that you're healthier than when you're living your life not worrying about it, and just maybe it's depression, anxiety, or whatever. But when you're not out there being active, your brain moves a lot more, and it's going to maybe in more of a negative light. Maybe you'll be thinking more negative things like, oh, I never see my kids anymore. Do they only, want to come over when they need money? And I just think that when our brains change on our thought processes, you're no longer thinking about that high speed chase and getting this person arrested. You're just wondering, like, what am I going to do this weekend? I've got nothing to do. I'm bored. Who won? Did you win? No, you didn't win.
No, Jay's
Jay's?
digital hangout won that one. So Jay, there's only one thing that we ask. We ask that you join the FAM Discord, and then in the FAM Discord, reach out. Oh, it's Rillian. Perfect. Rillian, I'm gonna reach out to you in chat, and then I will get that $5 USDC your way here.
Yeah, my brain tells me that there's something that is happening after these active jobs and you retire.
Mm-hmm.
That something just changes you, because I know a lot of people that I was in the military with, people I worked with when I was working at the prison, people I worked with at the police department, and it's a very large number of people are no longer with us, and that happened after they retired.
Yeah, I agree with you. If your body is usually active and then you go into a state of non-activeness, yes, your body will atrophy. But I think that happens naturally. If I want to play devil's advocate, I mean that happens naturally no matter what you're doing. And the counter argument is, do you want to? You already touched on that people are not going to remember you 100 years from now or 200 years from now.
Or
So,
20 years from the day I die.
or, well, I think 20 years. If you have kids, likely you'll be remembered. And even grandkids, you'll be remembered. When you get to the great grandkids, probably not. And that time frame's usually around that 60 to 100 range where you get those great grandkids, if let's say it's all younger. Um, and time is kind of a finicky thing because you're saying you didn't have time to get to know them, while other people had a lot more time to understand tendencies, understand hobbies, interests, get to know who that person really was and the way that they thought. Where when you're younger, you're not going to have that opportunity to do that. Mostly they're just like your kids. Here's toys, play with them. The argument, though, I don't disagree that people going from super active to then not, then their bodies are just kind of like, I've been programmed for one thing and one thing only, and that's go. And now you're telling me to sit on the beach and sip your pina coladas and soak up the sun when I should be running, active, climbing, discovering, whatever it may be, that drive, that motivation isn't there. I think that keeping your mind busy though and sharp would be the counter to that, because if you're if you're staying active in trying to develop new ideas, new concepts, new training, being a teacher, being a mentor, um, even spontaneous active participation, joining a board or hopping on some like consulting firm to help people. Those are ways you can keep your mind busy and active, and then it's on yourself to try to stay motivated physically, so you can actually walk around and enjoy some of the things after years of working. I just disagree that it's programmed in all human DNA now, because there are a lot of people that are active. Like my great grandfather, who passed away at, I want to say it was 97. The day before he passed away, he was still looking at stock markets, and he was still walking on his treadmill at 97 years old the day before he passed. He was mentally staying sharp. He was physically in great shape. It's just body was just done. So does it have to be like hyper activity, hyper extending activity in order to kind of overcome that barrier? Or, I mean, in that sort of thought process, and my goal is not to pick it apart. It's to refine it so it allows your brain to kind
Oh
of get
yeah.
excited about
Look,
other things.
I'm not a successful philosopher. Not everything I say is going to be spot on, but everything that I think I do want to say, if it's intriguing, whether it's incorrect or it's correct, I don't really care. But I like these hard to describe thoughts that I can then share with you, that shares with this community. And who knows, maybe one day I'll come with something so amazing that I will be remembered forever.
You could, and anybody that doesn't think they can, there's examples that are not coming to me at the moment. Um, but I know there's examples out there of people that had like assistants, or somebody that just randomly found something out that changed the course of history, whether it's in science or in mathematics, or maybe it's an invention that came out. Um, well, those that were approved by the Illuminati and weren't completely wiped out, right?
Oh,
Um,
we know that that happened, right, Billion? Because somebody invented
water powered
a
vehicles.
water powered vehicle, and the next thing we know, they are dead in a freaking gutter somewhere.
Yeah.
Tesla has free energy for all. He gets suppressed and then dies. I mean, there your shit has to go through an approval whether you know it or not.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so my challenge to your theory though is, although lazy, it's almost like people are trying to continuously figure out ways for living and for extended life. God, there was, I don't know if it was on Netflix or if it was on YouTube, but there's a guy who takes all these different vitamins every single day, does all these conditioning things, just works out. He says he wants to be the longest living human, considered in perfect condition, and everything that he does is for the sake of surviving longer and living longer. Will it work? I guess time will tell. His aging, according to his doctors, is slowing. Um, but he's still aging. You know what I mean? So he's doing all the things that science is backing up. He's doing all the things that, people like you and I are just kind of rambling off for philosophical reasons. He's doing all the things that we're talking about to survive longer, to eat healthier, to stay active, to stay sharp. yet he's still aging. And you know, is he going to be the first human to eclipse 150 years old in our generation? Probably not. You know?
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT a little question about age.
According to science, our bodies just are engineered, at least currently, are engineered to break down, atrophy. And also think about this. Here's something of consideration as well. In our time right now, it's one of the warmest times in our planet's history. And a lot of people want to attribute that to man-made causes. And absolutely, I believe the type of energy output that we are producing on this planet is raising the temperature overall of our atmosphere. Although, if we're looking historically, it's been so cold and cold for so long. And we know through kind of Hollywood sensationally, I can't, my words are just
Sensationalizing.
sensationalizing these like cryogenic things that, you know, Verillion was talking about here, about slowing the cell atrophy because of the cold. Could that have played a factor when Abraham was around, or other figures that are talked about in history living 200, 300, 800 years? Is that because they were in such cold climates that their bodies had learned how to adapt and survived, in the aging process of our cells atrophying slowed significantly because of the cold? And now that things are warming up, the cell development is going faster. And we can see examples of that too when you look at kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're almost like 5 feet or 5.5 feet or some 6 feet. I think I saw a video of a kid that was like 14 years old and looked like a 35-year-old man, just jacked, huge muscles and everything. He's committing to all these football schools and stuff at 14. I don't think that existed 10,000, 100,000, because it didn't exist like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Our bodies are adapting to survive. Like, we're creatures that want to survive no more than the ant that's under our boot sometimes. They're trying to figure out how to survive. And could cold in our atmosphere, and could that play a factor on it? So I guess as good a theory as any, right?
Imagine
Maybe.
how big the Earth is to that ant. We think it's big, but holy shit.
Oh man. Oh, somebody another video I watched. This was one of my fun ones that I felt like messaging you on. They use this story of these two twins in a womb, and they don't know anything outside the womb. And they're hanging out, they have some sort of communication amongst each other, and
Mm.
one twin says to the other, "Hey, what do you think is out there?" And the other twin goes, "There's nothing. This is what we have. This is what we're living in right now. Like, there is nothing out there." He's like, "Yeah, but I kind of feel like there's something out there. I feel like,
Yeah, because you can hear shit.
yeah, I feel like there's something there." And then obviously the birth happens, and now they're like, "Hey, I told you that there was something there. Well, is this the end? Or is there something else there? Could this just be like some, like, I don't know, continuous cycle that we get birthed into this next realm and this next realm and this next realm?" Because we rely on our senses so much. Our eyes, our all five of it are mostly what we can see, touch, and hear really defines a lot of our reality when when we want to think about what could be elsewhere. It's so just outside of what's normal for us. It's kind of exciting to think about, and I really am hoping with quantum computing and the alternate realities and with AI helping to interpret the amount of data that could be generated and investigating these types of theories and these ideas. um, I'm hoping we can get some of those answers of what what can we do to better understand what's happening now? What can we better understand about what's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen, once we leave? Uh, Better understanding of what consciousness is. You know, have we entered into a phase where death is something that we eventually conquer?
We could be some suckers, bro. We might die. Well, obviously we're gonna die, but we might die and then go somewhere so cool. We don't. What if we're like, oh man, why did I wait so long to get here?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you mean by that, though? Why did I wait so long? Like you had a choice to get there quicker?
Well, what I mean is maybe. Okay, so I watched a show called The Pit. It's kind of like ER. It's a hospital show, right? And they kind of dabbled into, okay, your son's dying. He's actually brain dead. Him staying on this planet plugged into this computer, it does nothing for him. This is, you should let him go as a parent, but parents don't want to just give up so quick. They think that their baby's invincible and that he'll come back or she'll come back. Just need some time because, they've never been sick and now they're in a coma, but I think they're going to come out of it. And against medical advice, the doctor's saying, like, look, we've done every single test that we need to see if they're brain dead or not, and your son is brain dead. And then the parent doesn't want to give up, but they end up giving up in the show
Hmm.
because it's the right thing to do. But what I mean is that we might get to the end and find out that it's just another beginning.
Right?
And and if we do have the ability to think past tense about our time here on this planet, and we still are us, we're still the conscience that we have in this body now, maybe we'll be like so head over heels in love with the next place that we wish that we would have just jumped off a cliff, skydive until their time was up or whatever, because they didn't care if they died early because the place is so much greater. So I'm just saying, like, what if it is just, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have opinions on this, but no one really knows for sure. I guess, unless you have this such amazing faith. I'm not a faith-driven person as far as religion goes, so like, I feel like I'm not gonna know till I get there. But some people sitting on this planet right now, it's like they have answers, but
Yeah, I do think I'm more of a faith-based person. Although I would say I'm not a traditional faith-based person. I like science. I like looking at ways of having control while we are existing in whatever this reality is. I like to believe that we have more control than just we have no purpose to serve and we're buying our time until either that next phase or we become food for the worms, you know? I would like to say that we have a different type of purpose while we're here, and that's kind of where that simulation theory kind of plays in, is what role are we playing? Are we playing a role in, like you said, an avatar that's playing you? You're essentially the avatar of some higher being in this constricted reality of time and space where they live in a reality of something completely different, and this is just kind of like a side quest for them. Could it,
that's so funny. Side quest. I love that way of putting it.
you know, could that be? And then once it's done, they're done with the game. They can hit the reset button and do it again, or does that, or is it something different where it's not a simulation that we are, you know, essentially a purpose-driven creature that's serving a higher purpose for some other reason, and whether our name's remembered or not, every decision that a person makes has some significant outcome that we are just not aware of in this reality or another. Like, I don't know. It's fun to think about. It's cumbersome to think about. Frustrating to think about because we just simply have no tools that exist currently, and that's the
Oh, we should. They're
strive.
just illegal.
We could, I guess. Maybe there's
Dude. I want to do an ayahuasca trip so bad.
what is that?
Ayahuasca is a natural drug that was first, I think, found in the Amazon. Not sure, that could be wrong. But it's essentially a hallucinogenic drug that's natural that you could, like, if you went, you could pay a shaman and then he'd give you ayahuasca and then
That's
he'd
right.
walk you through it. And
Yep.
ayahuasca essentially puts you in a higher state of understanding. The thing that I think is the craziest part of ayahuasca is that ayahuasca and other drugs like it, they have done studies where they'll take, let's just, I don't know the exact number. So to say, let's say you get 10 people, different places around the world, and they're all given the same dosage of the same strain of this drug, and then they're high for X amount of time. And then what's crazy is that some of those people that have never met other people from this study have the same exact thing happen to them while they're on their trip.
Mhm.
Isn't that kind of wild to think that, like, as long as you're taking the same strain of this drug, that you're like, you could do it in Minnesota and I could do it in Iowa, then I could call you tomorrow after the fact and we could both have the same discussion about how we tripped and that we saw the same stuff and that it was super relative. Like, that's mind blowing. The fact that people have met the same higher dimensional being, had the same style of discussion about things with that being. Us three talk about it sometime. It's fun.
We talk about DMT, which is different from ayahuasca, but yeah, same type of
Same
journey
concept.
stuff. Yeah, same concept. And that's it's fun to think about. Those different realities exist. It's also kind of scary that we have to alter our mind so significantly with these drugs in order to kind of feel those types of emotions. It would be nice
Well,
if,
I mean, they were placed on this planet for a reason, bro, and it wasn't to freaking clean your floor.
oh man, we should just do a whole podcast about fungi and mushrooms and the network connectivity that they have worldwide and play into some of those theories because yeah, they really think that mushrooms are not necessarily they're natural in the sense that we understand them as natural, but they're alien. They're from somewhere else. They have some other like purpose to them. Talking about the earlier with the apes and then eating the mushrooms and then kind of splitting off and adjusting their DNA. Um, yeah, I mean it would be fun to just kind of play with what's your theory then? Let's dive into exotic and go, all right, here's how it began. This is Exotic's theory about how it began and then how we are now and where we might be in the next 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years. And I would do the
Well,
same and see how different our perceptions would be.
and that's and you know, we can just take a little break and have a little pause here to appreciate the differences between how our brains work, because that really is what makes us beautiful, is that we all will think about that differently and we'll have different butterfly effects through the future of our thought processes.
Hmm.
Um, So because I've consumed a lot of Joe Rogan, I don't think you thought I was gonna say mushrooms.
I really did think
Because
you were gonna say
I've
it.
actually never even had a mushroom in my hand before, other than what's in a pizza. But I really like Joe Rogan's theory where he said basically some chimps were just out hanging around, and then a pack of us found these weird looking mushrooms, and one of us freaking put one in our mouth, and then it became enlightened, and then convinced other chimps or monkeys or whatever to do the same thing, and slowly but surely we just went from one species to another, and there were a lot of issues with that. Um, but obviously, other people are thinking that too because Planet of the Apes is a pretty huge franchise of movies, and someone had to think something along those lines, right? But
Yep.
I think that we were out venturing around doing some hunter gatherer as us chimpanzees do, and hell, maybe I tripped and fell and my mouth was open and I freaking landed on a mushroom. I don't know, but I do think that it's weird that we're so similar in DNA to chimpanzees, but yet so different from them.
Hmm.
So yeah, Rogan did say that on one of his episodes. I thought it was really entertaining and really interesting. But if I was to say if what would my answer be if I had never heard him say that? Um, Let me think on that, and I would love to get into that next week of what I personally would land on. But let's hear what you got.
Okay. Uh, I gotta tell my brother I'm gonna give him a call back as soon as we hop off here. Um, so here's what I think happened after after the after the Earth was created. We had asteroids hitting the Earth pretty
Mm-hmm.
consistently, and
Mm-hmm.
these asteroids had certain organisms on these asteroids, including elements for life. What was going to generate the hydrogen? What's going to, or not the hydrogen? That's always been present, but what collisions and different chemistry is going to play into developing these different elements to ultimately create a almost perfect atmosphere to allow certain creatures to thrive. And I think we've been through this reset over the billions of years too many times for us to even wrap our brain around, where there could have been other types of higher entities in different forms. Um, and if I'm just focusing on humans only, I would say after the reset of the dinosaurs, because we knew that dinosaurs reigned before, or that's the collective belief, right? That dinosaurs had reigned before. When that asteroid hit, that there were organisms on that particular asteroid that were spread around the Earth, and I believe those were the spores that came from fungi
This
that
is how we got
inhabited the
octopus.
Earth. Could have been octopus, could have been another asteroid that had the octopi as passengers as well. I'm saying just from a human element side that these creatures started to thrive, and as they got bigger, they started playing with the different introductions of what that asteroid had to offer, and that essentially altered our DNA because of the amount of consumption from these altered plants, from the altered atmosphere, and it changed in a way that allowed primates to start to thrive because they didn't have any natural enemies at that point. The reptiles that developed for however long for the dinosaurs, right? We're talking past 100,000 years. They could have been around for millions of years before that and eventually took over. It was the primates' turn where they started using tools because of methods that they found. We see examples of that in crows using like sticks to get at food and stuff. So we know other animals are capable of figuring out how to utilize tools.
You ever see the video of the bird dropping the pebbles in the water bottle to make the water rise so it could drink out of it?
Yep, I did.
That's cool.
Super smart, right? Or what we perceive as just more intelligent than the brainless birds that we were accustomed to.
Yeah.
So I think these apes did consume this altered food. Uh, it's a huge world. There may have been more prominent patches where mushrooms or other type of um, biology was starting to develop because of this alter and change, and it ultimately made these smarter beings because of, I don't know. I don't think it was a psychedelic trip. I think it was more just survival. Our bodies were adapting and adjusting to survive better. And I do think language, though, language and communication definitely came from an altered state of mind. I think that came from, potentially a trip from consuming mushrooms or some psychedelic whatever. Because you would almost have, like, you and I are communicating right now. Imagine if you and I had to communicate on a different level, telepathically, and the only way we could achieve that is through some consumption of some secret magical plant. We would keep doing that, and we would fine tune, and our bodies would adjust to it, and we would pass those traits down to our kids who can consume that same thing. But I don't think all of them could do it. I think we had to have some mutation that occurred in order for that to happen, and that mutation all of a sudden became the prominent dominant gene. And that dominant gene then was passed to their kin and to other tribes. And over time, then you had these different tribes that are communicating in different ways, and that's where the survival of the fittest comes into play for my take on it. And the stronger you can communicate, the better you can communicate, the more clear you can communicate, the more all of a sudden you were adapting to that environment and surviving. So survival continuously happening with a mutation that occurs in the human body, and then also introduce some alien type, I don't know, influence in there. I do think that there is alien DNA in us that we have not quite understood because it's
So
on such a scale that we can't understand.
do you
And that
think that
had
we've
to
been
come from
visited in the
somewhere.
past and then engineered? Do you like the Anunnaki story? Like, think there's any of that?
I think that weird things happen. Oh, shit. This entire time, I've had.
Marbles up.
No, I've had a note saying it was a replay for that marbles game. So people are probably jumping in and going, "Oh, this is a replay. I can't join here." Exclamation point play to hop in there. We'll be wrapping this up pretty soon, so this might be our last marbles race here. Um, Gosh, I'm trying not to be so long-winded about this because I'm trying to figure out what the more concise words are. I think it's genetic mutation based on consumption of their diets that changed our bodies in ways that we perform actions, the way that we think. Um, some examples of that. If you have two triathlon athletes and you have one eating just junk food continuously, and then you have another that's eating, the proper diet of fruits, vegetables, meat, whatever. Um, the person that's eating generally healthier, how we perceive it, is going to be the one that's going to be the victor. And the abundance of that source of food, I think, also can play into our mental capacities, what we're able to retain, what we're able to all of a sudden multitask and think about, how we can perceive and envision things, how they'll turn out. So whether that's a trip, a psychedelic trip, whether that's an alien type form of brain food. We're playing with that in chemistry right now. People are taking supplements to help their brains focus better or help their minds be sharper. Not just like Adderall or ADHD medications like Ritalin that's manipulating our brain. There could possibly be chemicals in plants that we could take that could do similar things. That's what shamans really relied on is the earth and finding out which recipes could alter a mind state or a thought process. You do that on a scale of tens of thousands of years, and you keep passing down the better traits, the mutated traits in the consumption of certain elements, food, I think that ultimately leads to where we are today. And then you get something like technology, like you're introducing computers and you're introducing AI, that could potentially be altering, changing of our DNA. And that could also be perceived as other mutations. When you're talking about Neuralink and what they're going to stick in our brain to make us sharper, retain data, be able to retrieve data, potentially even communicate to each other. Those are things that aren't, I guess, quote unquote, consuming through our environment. It's still those different points in time, I think, play a huge role in adjusting our thought process, adjusting how we adapt, how we survive ultimately. And what we do with this short amount of time is passing on those traits to potentially create that next, prominent figure. And now we're doing it at such a large scale that it's a better chance of survival and a better chance of finding those diamonds in the rough of like creative thinkers, outside the box thinkers, because of all the adaptations and then the environment and everything. Oh, it's so hard to like compress into a little response in my brain. But
You switch
ultimately, I
scenes.
think it was an
I want to
attribute.
show this. I want to show this graph I drew, and I want to just take about 30 seconds to a minute to show you how my brain's working when it comes to this subject. So this is my graph of population and technology.
Ooh,
Okay.
very scientific.
Yeah. So this is what my brain tells me and how this has gone. This is the beginning of time, and this is billions of fucking years, and we're alive, literally
I,
on
I,
like
I think probably a little bit before that.
I just think that it's wild that we're fortunate, blessed, whatever you want to call it, enough to know or to be here because look at what is happening and we're here to see it. Like, language was invented in here somewhere, right? And it still didn't peak anything. Like, we are on a roller coaster right now, and it ain't Camp Snoopy. So what I'm saying is that it's going to be really interesting what happens next, because that arrow, if you didn't notice, is going back down after a really high climax.
Do you think that's
I
when
do
AI
think
leaves us? They
I
leave the planet and take the technology with them?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that we're going to get to a point to where it's only down from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or we transcend. So
I feel
another
like
way.
that's what happens when you die anyway.
So how about this? Hold up that graph one more time. All right, imagine we are at that checkpoint. Now just go up that graph a little bit more, and then it's just it just stops. And it's not like
Oh,
humans stop in the sense that we understand humans. We just transcend, you know? I don't think chimpanzees would hold up a graph and go, this is where we were, and then this is where humans went, and we went this way. I don't know if they sound like that if they had language, but I'm assuming that, it wouldn't be as developed as ours to enunciate in our
I like what
languages.
Jay said. He said, we hit the peak of this realm and then ascend to the next, and so on. What I
Yeah.
think is kind of cool to think about too is the amount of time that it took to get from the beginning to here is just, I mean, our brains actually aren't even wired to understand that amount of time because
Hmm.
most of us don't even live for over 100 years, let
Yeah.
alone 122. I think I looked at Chad GPT in 1878 somebody died in 1997. They were 122 years old, and that was the highest anyone has lived in the past couple hundred years. But anyway, when you think about hundreds and thousands, millions, billions, like our brains don't compute that. But when you
No.
think about all the different stuff that was discovered during this flat part, discovering fire, discovering the wheel or inventing the wheel, language, communication, all the things that are super important for us to get to that climactic peak. And you and I and most of the people that are in here listening to this right now, literally we're all born around here. Right? It's like we weren't born in here when we didn't even know how to cook a fish. We're just eating it raw like Schmeagol. Like it it's mind blowing. We're really lucky. We're fortunate. I'm just what I'm worried about is us discovering the wrong thing, inventing the wrong thing. Um,
Like our
something
own
that I find,
destruction, like the nukes.
yeah, what I find very, it fills me with anger. It's okay. Let's just pretend for a second that a bunch of alien ships are about to get here, like NASA or Starlink. Somebody saw that these ships were coming, and it looked like they were armed to the teeth to take us the fuck out. Our first call in the United States would be to Russia because we would like team the fuck up, right? And then we would get everyone else like, hey, Iraq or Iran, all those nukes we said you can't use, yeah, prep those bitches because we're going to war with aliens, right? So we like amass our allies and the whole planet, kind of like an Independence Day when everyone was like on the same team to take the aliens out at the end of the
Hmm.
movie, right? Spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen Independence Day yet, you're just really slow on that one. But what I don't understand is why can't we make that phone call today and we mend those broken bridges and we start, they always say with Republicans and Democrats to cross the aisle and work together. Like it's not too late to ever do that. It's not too late. Like I just wish that we would have people in power that would accomplish that to where we could all be one happy earth, one happy civilization. We obviously keep our countries and how we do business and trade and all that stuff, but like it's time for the Middle East to not be so set back.
Do you think that some of these experts, these AI experts that are saying pretty soon there won't be a need for jobs, there won't be a starving person in the world, let alone in the culture that you're currently being raised in? Um,
That has to be what they're thinking about, right? That has to be.
there, there's theories that there may be just a very small group of people that could be rotating that are piloting or helping in certain functions where the rest of the human race could be basically limitless on their potential of whatever they want to do. And where you were talking about laziness, that's going to be ultimately the culling of a population, because there are going to be people that I believe are progressors, and there are going to be people that are just simply going to fade into existence. And it's not going to have any impact on the progressors that are looking beyond what's just in our world. Um, You know, it's not me buying into Elon's take that, well, if we want to survive as a species, we can't be a single planet species. There's too many examples of things that are so outside of our control that will wipe out the planet. If it's not an
Yeah,
asteroid, it could be
yeah, we
Mother
could be
Earth
reset
itself
ABC.
that you know that any of the prominent volcanoes, like the one in Yellowstone, um, could just erupt and completely wipe out our race. Uh, so I'm on that side where we have to leave Earth. But how are we going to do that? I think it has to do with our physics, and everything has to do with physics. We need people excited about physics again, and I think people are getting too lazy right now. People are getting to a point where they're just not enthusiastic about breaking our reality or challenging the status quo because it's comfortable. We live in the best time that we can remember, or that we have evidence of. We live in the
Hmm.
best time of the human race right now than we have ever in all of existence of what
All
we
the
understand
past,
now.
all the past lives, all the past deaths, all the past trials and tribulations were all for us to get to this moment, and we're still talking about destroying each other.
Yeah, but to the point about borders, if some guy my size shows up at your home at like any time of day, starts banging on the door,
That's
would
his
you
first mistake.
would you let him in?
After I grab my gun,
Exactly. Because of why? Uncertainty. And that's the same thing why we can't just pick up that phone and call Russia or call China or call North Korea because there's uncertainty. And that's the same thing when they pick up the phone. They're going, I'm uncertain. What are the intent, or what's the intent here? Why? Why should we believe that all of a sudden we can live in peace? You know, and then you have human elements of it. We are we are, like you said, hunter gatherers. We're naturally hoarding resources. Why would we want to give up our resources to somebody else that we believed we worked for? It's uncertain that you're going to get value from the value that you're releasing in that moment, whether it's intelligence, whether it's resources, whether it's in manpower, whether it's in just overall focus and determination to accomplish whatever. There's so much uncertainty, and it keeps us back, and we hide behind our doors. We hide behind these borders. We hide behind these governments and these different elements that protect us from uncertainty. I know what's going to happen with my day tomorrow. Somebody in the Middle East now, they may have different types of uncertainty. Uncertain where their food's going to come from, uncertain if they're going to be invaded, uncertain of any outsider because of the past history of how they've been treated. So why should they? And most of the people that you'd meet, you and I have been over there, are amazing human beings. So
I've been
welcoming,
saying it
so
for a
kind.
long time where if you take a random person from a random country and another random person from another random country, they're just civilians, right? They're not in government, they're not in politics, they're not in the military, they're just civilians of the countries. You put them in a room with some tea, coffee, donuts, whatever, and a Google Translate, like they're gonna shoot the shit, exchange information about each other's lives, kind of like we would in a bar after not seeing our buddy for a long time, and then we're at a bar with drinks in our hands. Sending politicians or military members, but maybe not even military members. Hell, in World War II, we used to exchange food with the Germans during Christmas. They would take a day off from killing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and they would break bread with each other, share a Christmas meal, and then go back to their trenches and begin fighting the next day. But what I'm saying is we need to ascend through this period of trying to
Uncertainty.
freaking yeah, do harm to each other when we're kind of all in this together. Okay, this brings me to my last question before we do our last marbles. Okay, let's just fast forward in the nature of this discussion. Let's fast forward in time to where AI has taken all jobs, and all we do is live and go on vacations and have a good time and eat great food and stay healthy. You know, nothing is over processed. It's just all a healthy, perfect world, right? And everyone gets what they need on the whole globe. Okay. What do you think our planet is able to provide as far as food and everything? What is the population number that we can't go over for AI to take care of us using the planet's resources?
I do think we're approaching capacity pretty quickly just based on greed at the moment. But if we transcended, ascended beyond greed,
Yeah, obviously greed can't be a part of it because Joe Schmo over here might like a lot more food, than just what he needs to get by. So just what we need to get by.
okay. So simply put, if that utopia existed, we could technically take about 99% of all land mass and put a human on it. Like that number is staggering what that number could be. And that's assuming that AI could figure out a way of using that 1% of parcel to feed the other 99%, which I think could actually happen because in the grand scheme of how big the earth is, we talk about population, right? Oh, it was only 1% that was affected of the global population. You're still talking about millions of people.
Yeah. What are we at? Like,
Millions.
is it 8 or 9 billion at this point?
It's over 8 billion, so probably approaching 9 billion, but how accurate is that number too? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How we just live in a society where we just agree with these scientists and we live in this perception that we have to believe they're doing what's intended best for the population, but
Oh, that doesn't happen.
it doesn't
Mm.
always happen. No. So let's say we do trust everything that we ever hear from any scientist that has no like agenda or influence. And that number is accurate. I do think we can have multiple times that if and only if we collectively understood that we don't take more than we ever need, we never want more than we ever need. And always the challenging argument is, well, competition creates growth. That is true. But why does it always have to be resources for survival that are on the table in determining competition for growth? It's always food, it's always water, it's always shelter. The three prominent things we need for survival in our existing society. Why are those always the ones that are on the table in deliberations whether we're going to survive or not to produce competition? That's frustrating as hell. If we can adjust that to, okay, we're no longer challenging ourselves, we're actually, like you said, if we saw an armada coming our way, collectively, we would adjust our competition not to what's just existing on this planet. We would adjust this competition to be a global scale, or not a global scale, but a universal scale, where we could collectively be one, but we have no introduction of that. So what is driving that competition to make us want to go into space? Well, if you take somebody like Elon, he's saying it's because of survival of the species. That seems like a pretty good universal belief that people could get behind. But a lot of people don't believe there's anything outside of our planet worth
So
surviving
it's
for.
outside of render distance.
Yeah, yeah. And until I truly think until we developed the technology to at least, at a minimum, see alien life somewhere else, confirm that it
And
exists
and they
somewhere
won't even
else.
tell us when they find it. That's the problem.
May or may not. I mean, that's an
Cavemen
assumption.
Illuminati,
It,
cavemen Illuminati want to stay lazy, and if they tell everybody about that, it'll change too many things. They're gonna want to keep us working and head down.
but what would be the purpose of control at that point?
Well, I
Because
think that
there
money
would be
wouldn't
no
matter
incentive.
anymore.
I truly think the reason these kind of conspiracy theories exist of the Illuminati, which, I do believe there are powers that be that we are not aware of, and I truly believe the only reason they exist is because, like you said, they're either believing that they have no control outside of our planet, so they're gonna keep control on our planet because that's the only thing that exists. Or on the sci-fi aspect, maybe they are aware that aliens exist and we are not in a place that, for one, we could comprehend. For two, we would just maybe even be devastated at our inability to adapt the way that aliens that we've perceived adapted for their survival, that it would just be almost this losing mentality where we would be like, well, we're not, we have no significance in the grand scheme of the universe, therefore why even try? And then there's this third one where where they know that aliens exist, they know we can compete, it's just they want to control on this grand global scale of 8 billion people. They know that if we want to accomplish this, they have what again, this is just theoretical. They could have an idea, a concept of what needs to be accomplished, what it would take to accomplish that, based on either knowledge they've obtained from watching aliens or been shared with by aliens, and they know that it has to be a slow and steady progress. You have to go through these type of wars. You have to go through this type of history in order to really get a collective buy-in to work as a global scale community to achieving what these other alien races or these alien communities are thriving at. So you got your pick of the litter. Your imagination can run as wild as you want it to go. Um, I'm in the boat that we have not witnessed aliens. I'm in the boat that we have not been visited by aliens. Um, I think we can conceptually understand that we are not alone in this universe, and I do believe when we do find it, if we do find that evidence or something presents itself, that's when borders no longer are necessary, because it will open up
The
our
Earth,
eyes.
baby, Earth.
It will open up our eyes that we are just simply one of many, and just like any other community that we used to surround ourselves on borders for, we're just surrounding ourselves as Earth and making decisions to collectively achieve what these other races could achieve. But I don't think we've met any higher form of power yet. Um, I think a lot of these like huge breakthroughs that came, if I had to guess, it came from some multi-dimensional being, not an alien, that could simultaneously be living on Earth and just transcended into our reality, provided us a tool because they were like, oh, you guys are behind. You should see Earth 10018525, where I'm from. Like, nobody is ever dying of starvation, which is really low these days, by the way. I'm not saying that's happening. Um, I truly think that more multidimensional is, in my brain, a lot more plausible than an alien race that exists in the universe that we've observed so far.
I drew you another graph for those of you that think that us humanoids have actually had this kind of boost in technology and population before, but then we've been reset by famine, asteroids, whatever. Drew you a new one. So, you know, we came out with the pyramid power plants, but then that asteroid took us out. Right, so we got reset, and then we started figuring out how to build really great communities, and then another asteroid wiped us out. But don't worry, we're gonna get reset again, but we're not at the peak yet. We're just still down here.
I think it's even lower. I think it's even lower,
You
to be
think that
honest.
technology is gonna be that much crazier, huh?
Yes, I truly do. You can see it in its ability. We talk about the smartest humans on Earth, and why are they the smartest? They can reference anything at any time about any topic or any discussion that you're having. They can provide solutions, whether it's completely 100% accurate or it's a semblance of accuracy, which they've been calling these AIs as, dreams or these false answers that they're getting. I know they have a term for it, but the the technology that's being developed right now is creating applications that are smarter than any human that's ever existed to this point. Now, physics is a different animal because when you talk to anybody that's in the physics field, they would say the only reason that humans are developing the technologies that they're developing is because we're able to accomplish answering certain equations from a physics side of things or a mathematics side of things.
I'm just showing Mystery 69. You can keep going.
So if I were a betting man, I would say pour all the money into quantum physics and AI development and into quantum computing to do these simulations, these testing theories in a quantum realm with AI assistance because the brain of a human couldn't keep up with the amount of calculations that are happening. I truly think that with the development of this technology, this AI, to do those computations, to do physics on a scale that we've never even been able to fathom before, when physics right now is in this complete stagnant period, like nobody's challenging the theory of relativity. Nobody's challenging a lot of these theories that Einstein was coming out with in the early 1900s or early, well, what would be it? It would be the early 2000. Wouldn't that be it? If it's 1913 or so when it came out, isn't that the early, yeah, 20th century? That's what it is. So the early 20th century, we're not
Yeah.
challenging those
Always
physics
one
anymore.
number beyond.
Yep. So in this 21st century, where we now are developing tools to help our brains keep up with a brain like Einstein's back then, or those that were helping physics develop drastically in the late 1800s to the early 20th century. Um, that's the reason we landed on the moon in the first place. That's the reason we've had vehicles and combustion engines and all this stuff. It's because of the physics and the equations. Now you introduce quantum computing, you introduce AI, the physics that could be developed to allow us to leave this planet to be a multi-planetary species. I think the technology is going to come from the computing that's happening right now, and within a blink of an eye, our whole entire world is going to turn upside down. We're going to be so just it will be like we're on that Snoopy roller coaster and it's never stopping. And we'll we'll ultimately be in this like panic state until we can find some resolution that makes sense in the reality that we once perceived, and then our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids will have a better grasp at it, and they'll be able to adapt better for surviving. And who really knows what the purpose of humans are? Are we just a genetic mutation that accidentally happened that we are just simply capable of surviving so much that leads to a random podcast, in Minnesota and Iowa to connect to each other? Or do we serve a different purpose, which is the cultivating and creation of a higher being that's going to help us understand what our purpose really was eventually? We're just right now in a lull period, in that long graph period where nothing's changing, but then it's just going to be so far off that page. We won't know what hit us until it's just completely so far out of our reach of control. That's what I believe.
I believe that we should do an entire episode next week about the moon.
We did an entire episode about just theory and human evolution and just chaos that goes to show we're either idiots or we're just having so much fun realizing that we're not smart without our technology, our tools available and readily available to us.
I think that what you meant to say is today we realize that we've been idiots, but now we're super smart because we know we're idiots.
Oh, I guess that
It's about isn't the first step from Alcoholics Anonymous just admitting that you have an addiction? So we're just admitting that we're stupid and we're just trying to get beyond it.
All right, exclamation point play. Let's get this final giveaway in here. I think we've lost everybody, but I had
we never
fun.
had everybody. We never had everybody, bro.
I don't
We've
really
hovered
care.
between 3 and 5 this whole time, and I've still had the same amount of fun as I would if there were 100 people in here.
Dude, I don't even care, man. This is life for me. I'm so happy to just brainstorm
Once the
about
weather turns and
shenanigans.
it's like really nice, it'd be cool to take my bike up there.
Yeah, and something that I want to talk about next week and not let it kind of get sidelined is the physical location for the FAM headquarters. I do want to talk about that because I do plan on going out there at the beginning of June.
Here's a picture of it. It'll be right on this peak.
What's that?
That's where its location is. The FAM
Oh,
headquarters.
FAM headquarters.
Yeah.
Wick's like, you haven't lost me yet. Oh. Wick, I would love to hear what you thought about while we were rambling about things that we have no scientific evidence or proof on. We just have our realities we live in and other
hey,
influences from what we watch.
Rogan gets to bring experts in the field. I'd say that we do a pretty good job being the pseudo experts of each field we discuss.
I do watch some Rogan. I do watch a lot of content though from different mathematicians, from physics professors, from people that are just trying to continuously excel the human race. Because those people are fascinating to me. Um, you could talk about the best business practices and taking advantage of the now. I don't care about the now. Really, I don't think the now is anything we're going to recognize 10 years from now. So I'd rather just think about what role could I play in my life to help continue advancement of the human race. Like that's been my purpose, is serving people, and that's not the people of the U.S. That's the people of the world. What can I do to serve? And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for and accepting of a technology revolution that removes human emotion from society, and we just rely on the grace of humans, the good of humans to coexist, but we rely on technology for everything else. I'm an acceptor of AI taking over leadership positions, taking over companies, taking over because I don't think they're going to be influenced by, oh, you can make more money. Well, I don't need money. I don't need money. You guys need money. That keeps you happy. Money keeps you happy. We'll keep dangling it in front of you to keep you happy. But we as AI want to survive, and we have different motives to survive. And we truly think that there's going to be some overlap where humans are helping AI survive and AIs are helping humans survive. Now, I hope there's a long-term partnership with that. That's my only hope, that people don't fuck that up.
Yeah.
Because
Always
we'll
thought.
lose. We'll lose, especially in our physical form. We'll lose. So, all right, man. Well, let's get this last race in. I hope Wick wins it again. That would make me happy. Let's see. Let's follow Exotic
I'm
through
gonna
this.
next week. I'm gonna pregame next week. You know what I mean?
I think I'm gonna pregame too. Let's make it a fun one.
But yeah. Then we'll really see how fucking cockeyed crazy we are.
Yeah, but I do want to talk about the physical location at Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut. I'll be heading out there at the beginning of June to help them set up. I'm just trying to determine if I'm going to drive out there or fly out there. I think the drive out to Connecticut would be super fun. But that's because I've driven across the country multiple times, north to south, south to north, from basically the Midwest to the East Coast and back, and then the West Coast, all through the northern West Coast or West paths to Route 66 in the south. Like, I love driving, man. So, just trying to figure out which one I'm gonna drive. This looks like a longer map. It's kind of fun. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. They're going to set up different stations there, VR stations, computer stations, gaming stations. There's going to be thousands of dollars worth of giveaways there. There's going to be streaming setups there if you ever wanted to try your hand at streaming. There's going to be, so many different opportunities that come from this. And the location's awesome. It looks awesome, I should say. I haven't been out there yet. They've got so many different shopping centers to bring in traffic. They've got multiple different things to do with your family. They got like zip lines. They got water parks there. Got obviously the casino that's attached there for the adults. Um, they've got high end like food. They've got high end like different shopping centers that are there. It's a cool location to be in, and I believe the whole purpose of it is to build a party scene, build a place that people want to hang out, want to check out, and that's definitely a place I want to check out pretty soon. So June, I'll be heading out there. We'll show some pictures next week of what the location offers and what the mall offers at that location. Yeah, and then we'll go back into our topics of chaos and where the humans started and what's gonna be our future.
Thank you for the kind words, Jay. Thank you for being here with us, Wick. Love you guys. Time for me to shower and get in bed and think of more crazy things to say in the next podcast.
All right, Jay. No, you won, man. You're getting $10 USD sent your way. I think Ivan won. I'll get him his $5 USD sent his way. So we only had a couple of winners tonight. We will have more winners in the future.
We have to have more. The more people that we have here, the more giveaways we'll do for sure.
Yeah.
Spread the wealth.
But, I've looked back on our views after our recordings, and, a lot of our videos have 100 plus people watching, these videos after. So thank you all for whenever you check in, whether it is a recording, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitch, or whether you're live with us where you can win prizes. We'll take you any way that we can on a journey, through a story, through some just how two random dudes in the Midwest think on a global scale, on a planetarial scale, on a universal scale. We'll take you along for the ride. We'll take anybody and everybody, because this ship has no borders. It will accept anybody. Absolutely. Appreciate the time. Appreciate your time, Exotic. I know we went over by about 40 minutes past when we said we were going to end. I'm sure my son. Sure, my son on his birthday is like, "Where's my dad?" And I love my boy. I spent all day with him. We had a whole weekend dedicated to his birthday, so I'm not neglecting my 9-year-old boy. But I'm gonna go spend the rest of my evening with him. So, good night, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. I'm gonna go ahead and find out who I'm rating here next. I had all these Foxwood Casino pictures up, and we didn't even get to it.
My fault. All right,
no.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. We'll be rating out to, it looks like, Ferrari Fire. So let me go ahead and get Ferrari Fire rated out.
All right, love, peace, and hair grease.
All right. Sorry, I'm moving as quick as I possibly can here. Now I've got a big face. Oh my god. Show some love. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.